My name is Mary Himmencool, and I'm with our new business development team. I am based in the US in our New York office, and I actually just moved to Zurich, Switzerland 3 weeks ago. So this is my first trip to Palestine. I'm absolutely delighted and thrilled to be here with you today. So thank you so much for having us. And we've heard a lot today about how to incorporate Google tools into your website, how to monetize via online advertising. And what I'd like to do today is share a little bit about how you could possibly actually run your business on Google tools and applications. And so primarily want to center around two key themes. One is communication and two is collaboration. So just a quick show of hands. How many here already use Google Apps today? Anyone? Great, a few. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So just to get started about Google's motivation behind this, and we spoke earlier about the company's mission statement, which is to organize all the world's information, make it universally accessible and useful. And when we think about the access piece, we both think about it as geographic access as well as across various devices. And so we have a fundamental belief that your data is yours, and you should be able to access it anywhere you are in the world on any device of your choosing. And so looking at 1.4 billion people online, over 3.3 billion people with access to mobile phones, this is a huge challenge and a huge opportunity. And so we're really thinking hard about how to deliver you effective communication tools that are seamless across all platforms and all devices. And so Husni spoke earlier and showed you kind of the evolution of internet technology over the last decade or so and the key themes that have emerged. And I just wanted to reiterate sort of where we are today in 2009. We're seeing the key themes are really around rich collaboration and developing platforms which enable people to generate their own content, people to collaborate and communicate and connect in ways that were never before possible. So our philosophy at Google when we approach it is really thinking about this collaborative piece is what is new and where I think we hope to deliver the most value possible. And we see a number of services today. This is not unique to Google. This is a phenomenon across the web. And I think Wikipedia is an especially terrific example of the notion that the collective wisdom of knowledge from many minds is better than one. And so we're applying these same principles to the software that we're developing. And a lot of these innovations across the consumer web and the consumer space are really informing the decisions that we're making about what are the services, what are the technologies, and what are the ways in which you'd like to communicate in the business space. So I want to talk, as we are all here today, entrepreneurs and business owners, I want to speak specifically about some of the challenges that we've identified out there in communicating internally today within a company and then how we're working to address them. So some of the challenges today, I think there are three primary ones. One is this notion of the information black hole. It's the idea that we spend so much of our time within email today, so much of our information is tied up in email, and it becomes very difficult. We spend a lot of time searching, trying to find it, trying to remember which folder we may have placed it in, and that's really not a great use of time. Number two is the economic issue, and this idea of the money pit, email and collaborative applications being very costly. At an average of over $300 per employee per year. When one is just starting out, we think that this just doesn't scale, and there must be a better way to approach it. And then, of course, there's the opportunity cost of spending a lot of our time, up to 80%, in fact, on IT maintenance and support, and we're looking to address all three of these dimensions. And not just that, I mean, there is the economic motivation of reducing costs, but there is also the notion of if we really build the right software, could we actually increase productivity within the workplace? And so our goal at Google is for you not to have to worry about all the back-end components, right? You shouldn't have to worry about security and spam. You shouldn't have to worry about, do I have enough storage, or have I backed up copies of my data? We want to worry about that for you and care deeply about security components, and you can simply come to work, focus on your core business, have a computer of your choice, a mobile phone of your choice, and the rest just works. There are other reasons too when we talk about security. We see today about 60% of corporate data resides on unsecured laptops, desktops, PCs, and 1 in 10 laptops are reported as stolen within the first year of purchase. So moreover, there's the issue of data mobility. How do we share information today? These USB thumb drives are very often lost, very often with confidential company data. So we want to alleviate all of this. And we get to the concept of cloud computing, which is the idea that applications and data reside on the network. So your information is stored securely online, and you can access it from any access point at any time. And with this in mind, we're really focusing heavily on security, on reliability, and on making it a seamless and a compelling user experience. And so we'll dive much more deeply into all of this. And we get asked very often, why? You know, why should I host my data on the cloud? And the analogy is the money analogy, right? Previously, when people used to store their wealth under the bed or bury it in the backyard, and clearly it makes more sense to store your wealth with the bank and access it from any ATM machine around the world. And so we think it is the same way with data, and similar to the economic example, security is of paramount importance. And so we'll talk about the ways that Google is working to address that. So what we've developed and what I'd like to share with you today is a suite of applications which we refer to as Google Apps. And across Google, when we build products, we really build them for everybody to use, whether you're a student, just a internet web consumer, whether you have a small business, whether you have a very, very large business. And we want to build tools that are effective and that scale really well as your company grows and scales. And so this is our model. And again, we aim to deliver it across all platforms, across all browsers, and across all mobile platforms as well. So we have the suite of tools called Google Apps, and it is a standard edition that is free and available for everyone. And since you are all entrepreneurs today, I want to talk about specifically with the business focus of this. And so we have launched what we call a Premier Edition of Google Apps, which is a premium version for small, medium businesses, for large enterprises, which are designed to address basically the feedback that we've received from customers and users in the field. And so there are 4 major components here: messaging, collaboration, security, and compliance. And so I want to dive into all 4 of these dimensions and tell you a little bit about what we're doing, and then later we'll dive into the consumer piece and talk about what is Google doing generally across these products for consumers. So messaging, how many people here use Gmail? Wow, so I'm very heartened to see almost every hand is raised. And so we can talk about, so you're very familiar with the user experience in Gmail. So with Google Apps, the model is basically, we give you this suite of applications that is hosted at your domain. If you already have one, that's great. If you don't, you can sign up for a new one and have these apps run at your domain. So essentially, the heart of the application will still be Gmail, but it will be at your domain with your company's branding for your users, right? So that's the core. Google Talk is our real-time communications application, and we'll get into specifics about screenshots and what this really looks like. But essentially, it's the idea that you should be able to do instant messaging, as well as voice and video chat from the browser with your contacts. And we also have calendar application as well, which enables you to create private calendars, create calendars that are shared with colleagues, create calendars, across the whole company. And so the way we look at it is that we want to sort of unify communication. So your contact list across email, across instant messaging, across calendar is the same contact list, and we hope to make that relevant for you. Moving on to collaboration. Anybody here use Google Docs? Terrific, so many. The collaborative piece to me is what has really revolutionized and changed the way that I personally work. I should mention that Google uses Google Apps internally for all of our business, and so we've been able to see, as we've scaled to a 20,000 person company, it really is incredible to see the power of being able to work together on documents, on spreadsheets, on presentations, and I'll show you later some of the new features that we've just launched within this as well. We also have Google Sites, which is terrific for creating internal project pages, internal team pages, internal resources within your company. And I'm proud to say we have video now, which is the ability to share internal video across the company. This was one of our top requested features, which we recently launched at the end of last year. So security and compliance, something I want to address. I know in an enterprise environment, security is extremely important, and I will say that Google has been built from the ground up with security in mind constantly, from the physical, geography of our data centers to how data is handled and maintained. And we transact billions of dollars every year through our global ads business, and those same principles of security apply to how we handle your data here. So we have an incredible attention to this, and we do have some premium offerings around a message, filtering, security, as well as compliance, which we can see here. So the question is, how much does this cost, and how does this compare to email solutions that messaging solutions that I might use today? And we said earlier, if the typical cost now is around $300 a user, we're trying to drive that price point down and just simply have one package. So it's $50 per year per user for the Google Apps Premier Edition. And essentially, it's 25 gigs of mail storage within Gmail, which is about 50 times the industry standard size right now. And the reason for that is we don't want you to have to delete anything. We want you to be able to just keep everything, archive it. Don't worry about organizing it. Organize it if you want. We have labels and filters, but the idea is that you can just search and find what you're looking for at your fingertips. We also have a 99.9% service level agreement, so there is never that concern of, am I going to be able to access my data? What if Google Apps is down? What if I'm in a presentation and can't get to my Google Docs? So, and we also have support for administrators within the company. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in the security and compliance components, we do have those as value add if that's of interest. And I want to talk about how we innovate, particularly here in the business space. We have a philosophy of shipping early and often. Basically, we want to ship features as soon as they're available, even if it's early, even if they're in beta, and really get the customer feedback and the user feedback and iterate quickly. So with Google Apps, looking at the timeline here, we launched the Premier Edition in 2007. And in the next 2 years, we've shipped just about 99 new features. And these are the highlighted ones. And I should say this is primarily based almost entirely on the data that we're hearing from companies who use Google Apps. And so I am excited and really hopeful that we can really revolutionize the productivity in the way that businesses are run, because you can communicate so effectively. And anecdotally, I should say, working in a global company and working in different parts of the world is just tremendously game-changing to be able to collaborate in real time. Even planning this event, internally we use Google Docs and spreadsheets. I've seen teams track their pipeline and budgeting, and there are some rather sophisticated features now that I'll share with you in a moment. And so in terms of the footprint of Google Apps today, it's continued to scale and accelerate, and we're really pleased. We have more than 1 million businesses using Google Apps, more than 10 million active users, and over 3,000 businesses sign up a day. So these are businesses of all sizes around the world. You can see here larger companies like Genentech, smaller, medium businesses, and then universities. And I just want to recognize and say hi to Najwan. Are you here? Oh, she's right here. So we just met yesterday, and I was so thrilled. Najwan basically runs the MyTech Centers, which are the Mediterranean Youth Technology Club, right, which is a partnership of UNDP and Cisco and the ICT for development in the Arab region. And Najwan was just telling me anecdotally there are roughly, 400 to 500 students who are coming to these programs and getting training in IT. And I'm so thrilled and excited to hear about this across Palestine, as well as 9 other countries nearby, and they're all running on Google Apps, and they all have Gmail accounts, use Calendar, use Google Docs. Najwan has built tremendous tools using Google Sites for them, and we never even talked. So, so it's very, it's a great use case, and I just wanted to say thank you and hello. Lastly, I want to say that in addition to this being an opportunity to hopefully run your business more productively and help you scale, there is actually an ecosystem that we're trying to develop around. We're clear on what Google does, and we're clear on what Google does not do, right? So, for example, we don't focus on IT implementation, things like that. So we actually have a partner program now within Google Apps, which you can sign up to be a reseller if that's of interest, to be a partner here in the region, and help with services such as migration, implementation, support. And so there are a variety of opportunities that I'm excited about as the space continues to grow. So now that we've sort of covered the business aspect to it, as I mentioned earlier, all of these tools are available to consumers, and we are constantly iterating on products like Gmail and Google Docs. So just want to share with you a little bit about what we're thinking there. Gmail, I really don't need to go over this because everybody in here is a Gmail user already, but how many of you are familiar with Gmail Labs? Great. So if you haven't used Labs, I encourage you to go into the Settings tab within Gmail, click on Labs, and you'll see we have a team who's launching just so many lab features. There are 2 or 3 dozen that are available today, including a couple that just launched last week. And so what we do here, our philosophy is that we just want to try out features we think might be innovative and useful and see if you agree. So they're totally opt-in. We don't want to spam all of the Gmail user base with them. But if you opt in, let us know if you like them. So for example, 2 of the most popular offline Gmail is tremendously helpful, especially if you're traveling a ton. You can basically use Gmail offline and it will sync next time you're connected to the internet. The second, which is really helpful for me, is undo send, and this just launched about 2 weeks ago. So how many times have you just hit send on an email and realize you forgot the attachment, or you forgot to include somebody in the to line, or you spelled the person's name wrong, and it gives you a few seconds. You can withdraw the send. So things like that we're trying to. We'd love to hear from you as well if there are other features which you think would be really useful. Google Calendar, just want to quickly show you the UI here. I think the principles of keeping the UI clean and seamless and functionality like drag and drop here has really seemed to resonate with our users. We have a new iPhone UI as well as desktop snooze reminders. So really trying to iterate and think about what might be useful beyond just the core application. And in terms of what opportunities for your business, we also have, you can go and add a calendar. You can add a friend's calendar, a colleague's calendar. You can also add a public calendar. So one thing that partners can do is actually create a calendar feed of events. So if you are running an entrepreneur's workshop in the region and you have events every week, you can create a Google Calendar feed and expose it to the user base. So when they search, it's actually a way of reaching a broader base. So Google Docs, we have, here's the UI. We have a gadget here for the home page and other new innovations. We recently launched offline access to Google Docs in 40 languages, so really pleased and focused on things like that. I did want to share with you something that might be useful within the company, which is the forms functionality. I don't know if you're familiar. Basically, within spreadsheets today, you can actually create a survey or a form, and it just creates a URL. You can use it within your domain, or you can use it publicly. And basically, you define the fields, you define what the questions are. Once a user hits submit, it populates a spreadsheet that you or anyone in your company who you give access to can see. So this is might be of use. A second thing we have is the Google Visualization API, which is integrated with spreadsheets as a data backend. So if you have large amounts of data sets and you want to actually visualize it as a Gantt chart or a pie chart, it's a pretty interesting way of viewing the data. I encourage you to check that out. Has anybody here used Google Talk and Gmail Video? Wow, wonderful. So I just want to give you a little bit of the history of Google Talk and real-time communication, because I think it informs sort of how we think about and how our thinking around product development evolves. So Google Talk, the downloadable client you see there, we launched in 2005, and it's based on open standards. It's based on the XMPP and Jabber protocol, and it is really our belief, we embrace open standards wherever possible, which means that you can communicate with other Google Talk users, anybody who's a Google Apps user, or anybody who supports XMPP, and there are thousands of services who do. If you don't, you can also build a proxy to XMPP, so really we're about open interoperability among networks. As phase 2, we sort of realized that instant messaging, real-time communication, and Gmail go hand in hand, so we launched Gmail Chat, just the IM. And then last year, at the end of the year, we launched Video Chat, which I'm it's just so useful even within the company. If you don't want to make a long distance phone call, try picking up, a headset and a webcam, and there you go. Anybody here use Google Photos? So we can't ever forget about photos in the media suite, and we have two sides to this. One is a downloadable client called Picasa, which you download, and it basically indexes and organizes chronologically in a way I think is visually very appealing, all of your photos. And there you have a number of photo editing tools, like red eye reduction, cropping, changing the color. It's pretty fun to play around with. And you can also share, add it to your blog, or you can click with one button and upload it to the web, because we're all about the cloud now, right? So, and that's Picasa Web Albums, is the idea that you can host all your photos online, share them, create private albums, create public albums. And I wanted to show just a few of the interfaces for these products in Arabic, which you possibly are already very familiar with. News, Blogger. In terms of principles we think about, in terms of product development at Google, we really believe that simple is better than complex, and companies who can have a sort of a clean and a seamless UI really are appealing. We believe that fast is better than slow, both in terms of the speed of the application itself, since we're aiming to have everything accessible via the cloud, but also fast in terms of the speed of iteration in product development. And we really, really believe in focusing on the user, whatever the scenario, if it's a consumer scenario or within the enterprise as well. So that's a bit about sort of the suite of products that we've developed, and I hope that you might find them useful. You can always try out the standard edition, and if you scale and the Premier edition is of interest, that is there as well. So thank you very much.